The morning started like any other at Earth Defense Command. Admiral Lisa Carter walked through the metal corridors of the orbital station, checking reports from the outer colonies. Coffee steamed in her cup as she reviewed supply requests from New Dakota and mining updates from Kepler Station. Everything seemed normal until the alarm started screaming. Commander Ryan Phillips burst through her office door without knocking. His face was pale and his hands shook as he held a datapad. "Admiral, we have a problem," he said, his voice cracking. "All contact with New Dakota is gone. Complete radio silence for the past 6 hours." Lisa set down her coffee and frowned. Communication problems happened sometimes, but 6 hours was too long. "What about backup channels?" she asked, already knowing the answer from Ryan's expression. "Dead. Everything is dead. We tried quantum relays, standard radio, even emergency beacons. Nothing comes back," Ryan said. He sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "It gets worse. Kepler Station went dark 3 hours ago. Same thing, total silence." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter in Lisa's mouth. 2 colonies losing contact on the same day was not a coincidence. She stood up and walked to the window that showed Earth spinning slowly below them. Somewhere out there in the darkness, something had happened to their people. "Get me Captain Morrison on the Vengeance," she ordered. "And wake up General Harrison. Tell him we might have a situation." The UES Vengeance floated in the construction yards above Mars, still receiving final upgrades. Captain Jake Morrison had been testing the ship's weapons systems when the call came in. He was a tall man with graying hair and eyes that had seen too many battles on Earth before humanity reached the stars. The Vengeance was his ship, the first real warship Earth had ever built for space combat. Unlike the sleek exploration vessels that carried colonists and supplies, the Vengeance looked like what it was, a weapon. Thick armor plates covered every surface. Nuclear missiles sat in protected launchers. Railguns that could fire tungsten rods at incredible speeds lined the hull. The ship was built to fight and survive in the cold vacuum of space. "Admiral wants us ready for emergency deployment," said Lieutenant Sam Torres, the weapons officer. He was young but smart, and he understood the Vengeance's systems better than anyone except the engineers who built them. "Something about lost colonies." Jake nodded and looked out at the stars. For 50 years, humans had been expanding into space without meeting anyone else. They had started to believe they were alone in the galaxy. Now that might be changing, and not in a good way. 3 days later, the UES Pioneer returned from its investigation mission. Captain Ryan Phillips looked like he had aged 10 years in a week. The data his ship carried made everyone in the command center sick to their stomachs. Dr. Helen Brooks, Earth's best scientist for studying alien life, stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. "This is impossible," she whispered, but the numbers did not lie. The energy signatures were massive, far beyond anything humans could produce. Whatever had hit the colonies used technology that made Earth's best weapons look like toys. The holographic display showed New Dakota as it had been. Green fields, small cities, happy families building a new life under an alien sun. Then it showed what the Pioneer had found. Nothing. The planet's surface was burned clean. No buildings, no people, no life at all. Even the atmosphere had been stripped away, leaving only bare rock floating in space. "Kepler Station is gone too," Ryan reported to the assembled officers. "Not destroyed, just gone. There's debris where it used to be, but pieces are too small to tell us what happened. Something with incredible power hit both locations." General Paul Harrison, Earth's top military commander, studied the data with cold eyes. He was an old soldier who had fought in the resource wars before space travel became possible. He understood what organized destruction looked like. "This was not random," he said. "Someone targeted our colony specifically. This was a message." Dr. Brooks pulled up more sensor data on the main screen. The attack patterns show systematic destruction. Whatever did this wanted to make sure nothing survived. No attempt at communication, no warning, just complete elimination of human presence. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed what that meant. Somewhere in the galaxy was a force powerful enough to destroy planets, and they had decided that humans should not exist. "How long before they come here?" asked Admiral Carter. Ryan Phillips checked his navigation data. "Based on the timing of the attacks and probable travel routes if they are heading for Earth, we have maybe 3 weeks. That assumes they move at speeds similar to our fastest ships. And if they are faster?" General Harrison asked. "Then they could be here tomorrow." Jake Morrison spoke up from the back of the room. "What are our options?" General Harrison turned to face the group of officers. We can try to evacuate Earth and run deeper into space. We can try to hide and hope they do not find us. Or we can fight. Fight with what? Asked Captain Phillips. You saw the energy readings. Their weapons make our nuclear missiles look like firecrackers. We fight with what we have, Jake said firmly. The Vengeance is ready for combat trials. We know how to build things that survive. Maybe their fancy technology has weaknesses we can exploit. Dr. Brooks looked up from her datapad. Actually, Captain Morrison might be right. These energy signatures suggest very advanced technology. Probably thousands of years ahead of ours. But advanced does not always mean better for every situation. Explain, Admiral Carter ordered. Look at human military history, Dr. Brooks said, pulling up historical data. Advanced armies have been defeated by simpler forces many times. The key is usually fighting in ways the advanced force does not expect. She showed examples on the screen. Ancient armies with bronze weapons defeating enemies with iron. Guerrilla fighters beating professional soldiers. Small fast ships sinking massive battleships. Every military force optimizes for the threats they expect to face. She continued. If these aliens have been the dominant power for a long time, they might not be ready for something completely different. Jake nodded slowly. The Vengeance is different. Everything about how we fight is different. We use kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. We build thick armor instead of energy shields. We plan for close combat instead of long-range dueling. It might work, General Harrison admitted, or it might just get us all killed faster. Either way, we need to try, Admiral Carter decided. Captain Morrison, how soon can the Vengeance be ready for action? Give me 48 hours to finish loading ammunition and run final systems checks, Jake replied. After that, we can show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our home. The meeting ended with everyone knowing that Earth's peaceful expansion into space was over. War was coming whether they wanted it or not. The only question was whether humanity would survive their first contact with galactic civilization. As the officers filed out of the room, Admiral Carter stayed behind, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien force was heading toward Earth with weapons that could destroy planets. All that stood between humanity and extinction was one untested warship, and the stubborn refusal of humans to give up without a fight. She thought about the families on New Dakota and the miners at Kepler Station. They had died without warning, without a chance to defend themselves. That would not happen to Earth. Whatever came out of the darkness between stars would find humans ready and waiting. The Vengeance might be only one ship, but it carried the hopes and fury of an entire species that had just learned they were not alone in a universe that seemed determined to kill them. 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and fear. Earth's orbital stations hummed with activity as weapons were loaded and ships were fueled. The Vengeance sat in the center of it all, a dark metal beast waiting for its first real fight. Captain Jake Morrison walked through his ship's corridors, checking every system one final time. The warning came at 600 hours on a Tuesday morning. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Space itself seemed to tear open as 47 alien ships emerged from whatever technology they used to travel between stars. Each vessel was the size of a small city, gleaming white and silver in the distant sunlight. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center watching the sensor displays with growing dread. The alien fleet arranged itself in perfect formation, moving with precision that spoke of advanced computer control. No human fleet could coordinate so smoothly across such distances. They are broadcasting something, reported Lieutenant Ben Clark from the communications station. His face was pale as he adjusted his equipment. It is not coming through our radios. The signal is going directly into our heads somehow. The voice that filled every human mind was cold and emotionless. It spoke perfect English somehow, though the accent was strange and hollow. Primitive species of the third planet, your expansion ends here. Surrender your homeworld and your deaths will be swift. Resist and we will turn your star into a weapon against you. President Alan Foster, watching from the secure bunker beneath Geneva, felt his blood turn to ice. The casual mention of using the sun as a weapon spoke of power beyond human understanding. Around him, world leaders sat in stunned silence as they absorbed the magnitude of what they faced. Admiral Carter, the president said over the secure channel, "What are our options?" Lisa looked at the tactical display showing Earth's pathetic defense fleet against the alien armada. 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, and the Vengeance against 47 city-sized warships. The math was simple and brutal. We fight, she said simply. We cannot outrun them, and we have nowhere to hide. Captain Morrison, are you ready? Jake stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, surrounded by his crew of 800. These were the best people Earth had, volunteers who knew they were probably flying to their deaths. Lieutenant Sam Torres checked his weapons one last time. Chief Kate Anderson reported all engines ready. The ship thrummed with barely contained power. Request permission to engage the enemy alone, Jake said into his communicator. Around him, his crew looked surprised but not shocked. They had trained for this moment and they trusted their captain completely. Negative, Captain, Admiral Carter replied. You will have support from the fleet. With respect, Admiral, the rest of our ships are not built for this fight. The Vengeance is. Let us test their defenses and gather intelligence. If we can learn how they fight, maybe the information will help Earth survive. There was a long pause before Lisa responded. Every military instinct said to keep the fleet together, but Jake was right. The destroyers and cruisers were exploration ships with weapons added as an afterthought. Only the Vengeance was designed from the ground up to be a weapon of war. Permission granted, Captain Morrison. Give them hell. The Vengeance detached from the defensive formation and accelerated toward the alien fleet at maximum burn. Its nuclear engines pushed the massive ship faster and faster until the hull groaned under the stress. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light. High Commander Vexithara watched the single human ship approaching on his flagship's main display. He was tall and thin like all his species, with pale blue skin and large black eyes that had never seen natural sunlight. For 3,000 years, his people had ruled this part of the galaxy, through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. One ship, he said to his aide with something like amusement. They send one primitive vessel against the Third Fleet. Perhaps they wish to surrender formally. His aide, a younger member of the same species, checked the sensor readings carefully. Commander, the human ship appears to be accelerating beyond safe parameters. Their engine output suggests they are willing to risk hull breach to reach combat range. Vexthara's amusement faded slightly. Desperation could make primitives dangerous in unpredictable ways. Signal the lead squadron to disable their engines. Use minimum power. We want them intact for study. The alien weapons fired beautiful beams of pure energy that could slice through most known materials like hot knives through butter. The targeting was perfect, calculated by computers that could process millions of variables in microseconds. The beams struck the Vengeance dead center and should have crippled the ship instantly. Instead, the energy splashed across the human ship's armor like water hitting a rock. The thick metal plating absorbed and dispersed the heat across its entire surface. Warning lights flashed on the Vengeance's bridge, but no critical systems failed. Armor holding, reported Chief Anderson with satisfaction. Their energy weapons are not designed for solid matter defense. They expect everyone to use energy shields like they do. Jake smiled grimly as his ship continued its charge toward the alien line. Mr. Torres, return fire. Show them how humans fight. The Vengeance's main guns were magnetic rail systems that accelerated tungsten rods to incredible speeds, using electromagnetic fields. The projectiles were simple chunks of metal with no electronics or exotic technology. They relied purely on kinetic energy to destroy their targets. The tungsten rods struck the lead alien ship before its crew even realized they were under attack. The projectiles punched through the vessel's energy shields as if they were not there, and tore massive holes in the hull. Internal explosions lit up the alien ship from within as critical systems failed. High Commander Vexithara stared in disbelief as his lead ship died in a ball of fire. The humans were using solid projectiles, a technology so primitive his people had abandoned it millennia ago. His ship's defenses were optimized for energy weapons and particle beams, not chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel, he ordered, his calm voice betraying none of his shock. Use maximum power. Dozens of energy beams converged on the Vengeance from every direction. The ship's armor glowed white-hot under the assault, but held together through sheer thickness and human engineering. Alarms wailed throughout the ship as secondary systems failed and entire sections lost power. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported damage control teams. Fire in the missile bay. Engines at 60% power. Jake ignored the reports and focused on his target. The Vengeance was dying around him, but it was still fighting. Mr. Torres, target their command ship. All weapons. The human ship fired everything it had at the alien flagship. Railgun rounds, nuclear missiles, and experimental plasma cannons all converged on Vexthera's vessel. The alien ship's shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. Explosions rippled across its hull as human weapons found their mark, but the Vengeance could not survive much longer. Half its weapons were destroyed and the nuclear reactor was dangerously unstable. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed," he announced over the ship's communication system. "It has been an honor serving with you." The Vengeance's engines roared to life one final time, pushing the crippled ship directly at the nearest alien vessel. The two ships collided in a brilliant flash visible from Earth. Both vessels died together in a nuclear fireball that lit up the solar system. When the light faded, 8 alien ships were destroyed, and 6 more were heavily damaged. The human ship was gone, taking 800 brave souls with it. But across the galaxy, other species watched the sensor recordings with growing amazement. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had made the hegemony bleed. The humans had lost their ship and their lives, but they had proven something important. The aliens could be hurt. They could be killed. They were not the gods they pretended to be. High Commander Vexthera stared at the debris field where the human ship had been and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. These primitives fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They seemed to prefer dying in battle to surrendering, and their weapons were specifically designed to counter his fleet's defenses. "Send a message to the High Council," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated." News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than the hegemony could stop it. On distant worlds that had been conquered centuries ago, beings who had forgotten what freedom meant gathered around hidden communication devices to listen to impossible stories. A single primitive ship had destroyed 8 hegemony vessels and damaged 6 more before dying in glorious fire. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood in the rebuilt command center on Earth's orbital station, studying the wreckage of alien technology that had been recovered from the battle site. He was a thin man with sharp eyes who had spent his career planning battles that everyone hoped would never happen. Now those plans were the only thing standing between Earth and extinction. The alien ships use energy shields that redirect particle beams and plasma. "Weapons," he explained to the assembled engineers and scientists. "But kinetic weapons go right through them like they are not even there. Their entire defense philosophy assumes enemies will fight using energy-based technology." Dr. Helen Brooks nodded as she examined a piece of alien hull material. The metal was incredibly light but strong, designed to resist heat and radiation rather than physical impact. "Their armor is optimized for energy absorption. A simple steel hammer would probably dent this better than a laser." Chief Kate Anderson, who had survived the destruction of the Vengeance in an escape pod, looked up from the alien reactor components she was studying. "Their power systems are incredibly advanced but also incredibly complex. Everything is automated and controlled by artificial intelligence. I doubt they have backup manual controls for anything." "What does that mean for us?" asked Admiral Lisa Carter. Kate smiled grimly. "It means if we can disrupt their computer systems, their ships become floating metal coffins. They have probably forgotten how to operate anything manually. The Earth Defense Council worked around the clock to design new ships based on what they had learned. The captured alien technology was impressive, but also revealed critical weaknesses that human engineers could exploit. Where aliens used single integrated systems, humans built redundant backups. Where aliens relied on automation, humans trained people to take manual control. The new human fleet took shape in orbital shipyards around Mars and Jupiter. 20 ships designed specifically to fight hegemony forces, each one incorporating lessons learned from the Vengeance's sacrifice. They looked brutal and functional compared to the elegant alien vessels, but they were built to survive and win. Meanwhile, across hegemony space, rebellion was stirring. The Caraxian Empire had been the hegemony's first major conquest 800 years ago. Their people had been proud warriors before the conquest reduced them to factory workers producing weapons for their conquerors. Now their hidden leaders met in secret to discuss impossible possibilities. General Marcus Corax, descendant of the last free emperor, received the first human transmission through smuggled communication equipment. The message was simple but revolutionary. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We have fought the hegemony and survived. We seek allies who wish to be free. The response came back 3 days later, transmitted across dozens of relay stations to avoid hegemony detection. We are the Free Caraxian movement. We have waited 8 centuries for someone to show us that the hegemony can bleed. Tell us how to fight. Dr. Brooks found herself coordinating with rebel groups across a dozen star systems. Each species brought different knowledge about hegemony weaknesses and tactics. The Thelonians were expert engineers who knew how to build weapons from industrial equipment. The Zephyrians were former hegemony scientists who understood their technology better than anyone. The Valdorians were natural pilots who could fly anything with engines. The hegemony rules through fear and superior technology, explained Zephyrian scientist Dr. Veltar during a secret transmission. They have not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their tactics are designed for quick, decisive victories against technologically inferior opponents. General Paul Harrison coordinated with rebel military leaders, sharing human combat doctrine and tactics that had been developed through centuries of warfare on Earth. The concept of asymmetric warfare was completely foreign to most galactic species, but they learned quickly when their freedom depended on it. Fight dirty, Harrison explained during a strategy session. Use their assumptions against them. They expect honorable combat with clear rules. Give them chaos and unpredictability instead. The new flagship UES Retribution launched from Earth's shipyard 6 months after the Vengeance's destruction. Captain Linda Hayes, who had been Jake Morrison's second in command, now led humanity's most powerful warship. The Retribution was larger and more heavily armed than its predecessor, carrying weapons that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. The ship handles like a brick, but hits like a planet killer, reported Chief Engineer Bob Stevens during the shakedown cruise. The Retribution's main weapons were improved railguns that could fire tungsten rods at nearly light speed. Secondary weapons included nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, and experimental gravity bombs built using alien technology. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker trained the new generation of human Marines for boarding actions. His soldiers practiced fighting in zero gravity, in alien atmospheres, and in the cramped corridors of spacecraft. They learned to use primitive firearms alongside advanced energy weapons because humans had discovered that simple kinetic weapons were often more effective than exotic technologies. The aliens have forgotten how to fight hand-to-hand, Steve explained to his troops. They rely on automated defenses and energy barriers. A good old-fashioned shotgun will go through their personal shields like they are made of paper. Back on Earth, President Alan Foster addressed the world as humanity prepared for the next phase of the war. 6 months ago, we learned we were not alone in the universe. We learned that there are forces out there that want to destroy us simply because we exist. Today, we send our answer back to them. Humanity will not go quietly into the dark. The hegemony's response was swift and overwhelming. High Admiral Keth Moore, the greatest military commander in galactic history, received orders to assemble the largest fleet ever deployed. 200 ships from across hegemony space converged on a staging area just outside human territory. The primitives got lucky once, Keth Moore told his assembled captains. They destroyed a few ships through surprise and desperation. We will not underestimate them again. This time we bring enough firepower to sterilize their entire solar system. The High Admiral was confident in his superiority. He commanded veterans who had never lost a battle and ships equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The humans had proven they could fight, but they were still using primitive technology and desperate tactics. What Keth Moore did not know was that his fleet was being watched. Rebel spies in the hegemony military transmitted intelligence about fleet movements and battle plans to human forces. For the first time in galactic history, the hegemony was fighting an enemy that knew exactly what they were planning. Admiral Rodriguez studied the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. The alien fleet was massive and powerful, but it was also predictable. They would attack in standard formation using standard tactics because they had never needed to do anything else. They are bringing everything they have, he told the assembled human commanders. 200 ships, their best crews, their most experienced admiral. They want to end this war with one decisive battle. Captain Hayes looked up from the tactical displays. Where do we make our stand? Rodriguez smiled and pointed to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Right here. Let them come to us where we can control the battlefield. We are going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's home. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had always been a quiet place, where mining ships collected metals and ice for Earth's colonies. Now it became the stage for the largest space battle in galactic history. 20 human ships waited among the floating rocks while sensors tracked the approaching hegemony armada. High Admiral Keth Moore brought 200 vessels out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, sleek and deadly and beautiful in the cold starlight. For 3,000 years, his species had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. Today would be no different. Deploy in standard attack formation, Keth Moore ordered from his flagship's bridge. Around him, his crew worked with practiced precision to coordinate the massive fleet. Computer systems calculated firing solutions and movement patterns while automated defenses, prepared to destroy any opposition. What the alien admiral did not expect was complete silence. From the asteroid field ahead, human ships had shut down all active sensors and communications, hiding among the rocks like ancient submarines waiting for enemy warships to pass overhead. Only passive sensors watched the alien fleet approach. Captain Linda Hayes crouched in the command center of the UES Retribution, watching her tactical display count down the distance to optimal firing range. Around her, the crew waited in absolute silence while their ship drifted through space like just another piece of space debris. Alien fleet is maintaining formation, whispered Lieutenant Sam Torres from the weapons station. They expect us to meet them in open space for a traditional battle. Linda smiled coldly. Human military doctrine had been shaped by centuries of warfare against other humans who thought in similar patterns. Fighting alien species required throwing away everything they thought they knew about space combat. Signal all ships, she ordered quietly. Operation Sledgehammer begins in 30 seconds. The first sign of trouble for the hegemony fleet came when massive asteroids began moving toward them at impossible speeds. Human ships had spent weeks preparing their trap, attaching nuclear engines to the largest rocks in the belt and programming them to accelerate on command. Keth Moore watched in confusion as chunks of stone and metal the size of buildings hurtled toward his carefully arranged formation. His weapons officers targeted the incoming rocks, but their energy beams only broke the asteroids into smaller pieces that continued toward the fleet. Evasive maneuvers, the High Admiral ordered, but his ships were designed for open space combat, where maneuverability meant graceful turns and precise formations. The asteroids moved too fast and there were too many of them. The first impact sent shockwaves through the alien fleet as multi-ton rocks slammed into energy shields at tremendous velocities. The shields held, but the impacts disrupted formation and damaged several ships. More importantly, they scattered the fleet across a much wider area. That was when the human ships revealed themselves. 20 vessels emerged from hiding places among the asteroids, their weapons already locked onto targets. The Retribution led the charge, its railguns firing tungsten rods that punched through alien hulls like arrows through paper. All weapons, fire at will, Linda commanded as her ship dove through the scattered alien formation. Human vessels moved in patterns that made no sense to galactic military doctrine, using sudden accelerations and direction changes that would have killed alien crews, but were routine for humans trained in high-gravity environments. The UES Defiance, commanded by Captain Mark Roberts, led a squadron of destroyers in coordinated strikes against the alien flanks. His ships moved like wolves hunting in a pack, concentrating their fire on individual targets until each alien vessel was destroyed before moving to the next. Target their command ships first, Mark ordered as his weapons officer locked onto a hegemony cruiser. Take out their coordination and the rest will be easier to handle. Human tactics confused and terrified the alien crews. Earth's warships broadcast classical music during combat, filling communication channels with Beethoven and Mozart, while they fired nuclear missiles and kinetic rounds. The psychological effect on enemies who expected logical military communications was devastating. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker launched boarding pods from the Retribution as soon as they closed with the enemy flagship. His Marines had trained for months to assault alien vessels, learning to fight in zero gravity with weapons that could punch through spacecraft hulls without causing explosive decompression. The boarding pods were crude metal cylinders that used shaped charges to burn through alien armor before depositing human soldiers directly into enemy corridors. Hegemony ships had no defenses against such primitive assault tactics because no civilized species had used boarding actions in over a millennium. Steve led his troops through the alien flagship's corridors, using shotguns and assault rifles to clear rooms filled with enemies who had never faced individual combat. The aliens relied on energy barriers and automated defenses that were useless against humans trained to fight in confined spaces. "Secure the bridge," Steve ordered as his teams advanced through the ship. "I want their admiral alive if possible." Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Kate Anderson implemented her greatest innovation during the battle. Human ships deployed gravity mines throughout the asteroid field, devices that created localized gravitational anomalies. Using captured alien technology, the mines pulled enemy vessels out of formation and into kill zones where concentrated human firepower could destroy them. Alien ships that tried to maintain distance found themselves dragged inexorably toward human positions where kinetic weapons were most effective. "Gravity minefield is active," Kate reported from the Retribution's engineering section. "Enemy formation is completely disrupted. They cannot coordinate their attacks." High Admiral Kethmore watched his carefully planned battle dissolve into chaos as human tactics destroyed everything he understood about space warfare. His ships were being picked off one by an enemy that refused to fight according to any recognizable doctrine. The humans used their environment as a weapon, accelerating asteroids and debris at his fleet, while hiding among the rocks like pirates. They boarded his ships with primitive soldiers using kinetic weapons that should have been obsolete for thousands of years. "Signal all ships to retreat to minimum safe distance," Kethmore ordered desperately. "Reform and prepare for long-range bombardment," but it was too late for orderly retreats. Human ships had penetrated deep into his formation and were fighting at point-blank range where his energy weapons were least effective. The battle had become a brawl in 3 dimensions with no clear lines or formations. Captain Hayes guided the Retribution through the heart of the enemy fleet, her ship's armor glowing from energy weapon hits but still intact. Human engineering had built vessels that could absorb tremendous punishment and keep fighting. "Target the enemy flagship," she ordered as her weapons officer acquired firing solutions. "All batteries, maximum power." The Retribution's main guns fired simultaneously, sending dozens of tungsten rods at nearly light speed toward Kethmore's command ship. The kinetic rounds overwhelmed the alien vessel's defenses and punched massive holes through its hull. Internal explosions lit up the flagship from within as critical. Systems failed and the ship began to break apart. Emergency escape pods launched as the crew abandoned their dying vessel, including one carrying the greatest military commander in galactic history. The capture of High Admiral Kethmore sent shockwaves through the remaining hegemony fleet. For the first time in 3 millennia, their supreme commander had been defeated and taken prisoner by primitives using weapons that should not have worked. Panic spread through the alien ranks as ships began retreating without orders. The carefully disciplined fleet that had arrived with overwhelming confidence was now a broken mob, fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. "Pursuit course," Linda ordered as human ships gave chase. "Do not let them escape to warn their reinforcements." The Battle of the Asteroid Belt ended with complete human victory. Of the 200-ship hegemony armada, only 30 vessels escaped to hyperspace. The human fleet, though reduced to 12 operational ships, had achieved the impossible once again. More importantly, the battle was broadcast across the galaxy by rebel agents who had infiltrated hegemony communication networks. Billions of beings on hundreds of worlds watched as human ships destroyed the largest fleet ever assembled, proving once and for all that the hegemony could be defeated. The news of High Admiral Kethmore's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On every world under hegemony control, beings who had lived in fear for generations suddenly looked up at the stars with hope. The impossible had happened twice now, and that meant it could happen again. Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the expanded command center aboard Earth's newest orbital station, watching reports flood in from across known space. Rebellion had erupted on dozens of worlds as species that had been conquered centuries ago rose against their oppressors. "The Coraxian Empire has declared independence," reported Commander Ryan Phillips, reading from a constant stream of intelligence updates. "They have seized control of 3 star systems and are building a fleet using captured hegemony ships. The Thelonian Republic is in open revolt," added Dr. Helen Brooks. "Their industrial worlds are producing weapons for rebel forces instead of hegemony equipment. They are sharing their manufacturing techniques with other resistance groups." Admiral Tony Rodriguez coordinated the growing alliance from his position as Earth's military strategist. Human advisors were spread across dozens of star systems, teaching alien rebels the tactics that had proven so effective against hegemony forces. The key is to never fight them on their terms, Rodriguez explained during a strategy session with rebel leaders. They expect honorable combat with clear rules and predictable tactics. Give them chaos and they fall apart. Captain Linda Hayes commanded a growing fleet of 50 ships as humanity expanded beyond the solar system for the first time since the colonies were destroyed. The Retribution led liberation missions to free human survivors from hegemony prison worlds while establishing bases for the expanding war. New Dakota has been liberated, she reported during the daily briefing. We found over 3,000 human survivors in labor camps. They are being evacuated to Earth for medical treatment. The rescued colonists brought horrifying stories of hegemony occupation. Humans had been kept alive for study and experimentation, treated as laboratory animals by scientists who viewed them as primitive curiosities. The stories fueled human anger and determination to end hegemony rule forever. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker led expanded Marine forces in ground operations across liberated worlds. His soldiers had become legendary among rebel forces for their ability to assault defended positions that other species considered impossible to take. Human Marines do not know when to quit, explained General Marcus Corax during a joint planning session. Your people will attack fortified positions that my warriors would consider suicide missions. The hegemony has no defense against such determination. The hegemony's ruling council faced the first real crisis in their 3,000-year history. Member species were questioning the fundamental philosophy that had held their civilization together. If primitive humans could defeat their most advanced fleets, what did that say about technological superiority as a basis for rule? The humans fight like animals, complained Council Member Zarbeth during an emergency session. They use crude weapons and primitive tactics. They should not be able to defeat our forces. Yet they have, replied Elder Vex Nala, the oldest member of the council. Perhaps our assumptions about primitive species need to be reconsidered. The debate that followed revealed deep cracks in hegemony unity. Some members wanted to negotiate with the humans and rebels, while others demanded the use of planet-killing weapons to end the threat permanently. The argument paralyzed decision-making at the highest levels. Dr. Brooks established the Galactic Freedom Network, a communication system that linked rebel groups across hundreds of light years. For the first time in galactic history, oppressed species could coordinate their resistance efforts and share intelligence about hegemony movements. The network is carrying thousands of messages per day, she reported to Admiral Carter. Rebel groups are sharing tactical information, supply routes, and safe house locations. The hegemony cannot monitor everything anymore. The most important development came when former hegemony scientists began defecting to human forces. Dr. Veltar, the Zephyrian researcher who had first contacted Earth, arrived with detailed information about hegemony technology and military capabilities. Their greatest weakness is overconfidence, Veltar explained during intelligence briefings. They have not adapted their tactics or technology in over 1,000 years because they never needed to. Innovation has been replaced by tradition. Captain Hayes led the final assault on the hegemony capital system with a combined fleet of human and rebel ships. The Retribution flew alongside vessels from 12 different species, each contributing their unique capabilities to the liberation effort. The sight of the mixed fleet approaching the hegemony homeworld sent shockwaves through the ruling council. Ships that had once served them faithfully now flew under rebel flags, crewed by species they had conquered and enslaved. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, Lisa broadcast to the combined fleet. Today we do not fight for conquest or revenge. We fight for the right of every species to determine its own future. Make your shots count. The battle for the capital system was brief but decisive. Hegemony defenders had expected a traditional assault and found themselves facing the same chaotic tactics that had destroyed their fleets at Earth. Human ships coordinated with alien vessels in ways that confused enemy commanders and disrupted their defensive plans. Steve Parker led the final assault on the Hegemony Council chambers, supported by elite troops from every rebel species. The ancient building had never been breached by outside forces, but it had also never faced soldiers trained in human assault tactics. Surrender, Steve announced as his mixed force surrounded the cowering council members. The war is over. Your people can join the new galactic community or face justice for their crimes. The formal surrender came 6 hours later as Elder Vexnala signed documents that dissolved the hegemony and established the Galactic Assembly. For the first time in 3 millennia, the galaxy would be governed by representatives of free species rather than conquerors. Admiral Carter addressed the first session of the Galactic Assembly from the podium where hegemony leaders had once pronounced death sentences on entire worlds. Representatives from over 200 species filled the chamber, many wearing the uniforms of military forces that had recently been rebels. "We gather not as victors and defeated," she said, "but as equals who have chosen cooperation over domination. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to prosper without enslaving our neighbors." The new government faced enormous challenges in rebuilding worlds damaged by centuries of oppression, but it also offered unprecedented opportunities for cooperation between species. Human technology combined with alien science created innovations that neither could have achieved alone. Captain Hayes received command of the first integrated fleet, with ships and crews from dozens of worlds working together to patrol the galaxy and prevent the rise of new tyrants. The Retribution, now battle-scarred but legendary, served as flagship for a new kind of military force. "We are not conquerors," Hayes told her mixed crew during their first joint mission. "We are guardians of freedom. Our job is to make sure no species ever again faces the choice between slavery and extinction." The transformation was not complete and would take generations to fully implement. Some former hegemony species struggled to adapt to democracy and equality after millennia of ruling others. Some rebel groups had to be prevented from seeking revenge against their former oppressors. But across the galaxy, children of every species grew up hearing stories of the day when Earth's battleship entered the field and changed everything. They learned that technological superiority meant nothing without the courage to fight for what was right. The galaxy had screamed in terror when humanity arrived, but now it sang with the voices of free peoples building a better future together. Earth's greatest victory was not the destruction of enemy fleets, but the proof that even the most powerful tyranny could fall when ordinary beings refused to accept that might makes right.